Welcome, Amrit, CEO of Beleaf Smart Farming, calling us from Jakarta, Indonesia today. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us and our crowd investors. Lendahand has been working with funding societies for a couple of years now, and it allows crowdfunders in Europe to invest in companies like Beleaf. They're curious about the companies they invest in. And that's why we're here today, to hear from you what Beleaf does and how their financing is contributing to make it all happen. So welcome, Amrit. And can you tell us a little bit about Beleaf? It was founded in 2019. What inspired its creation?
Thank you for having me on the call. So I'll give you a little bit of context. So I was actually in real estate before 2019 and really didn't like it very much and wanted to do something a bit more impactful. And, I was actually with my wife and telling her that when I retire, I want to live on a farm and be a farmer. And the idea was, why don't you go and give it a shot now? Which I didn't take seriously at first. But then in 2018, I did some research and then opened a hydroponic farm in 2019. And that's actually how it began. So initially, we were a small hydroponic farm. And the goal that first year was, can we create a yield per square meter that's high enough to financially make this feasible? And can we create a brand, a story, and a product that's good enough for supermarkets to keep reordering? So after doing that the first year, we then built our second farm, which also quickly got absorbed into the supermarkets in Indonesia. Then at that point, the decision became, do we continue scaling this through a CapEx heavy model, or do we find an asset light version of this? And so that's when I started speaking to a few guys in venture capital and exploring different routes. And what we then came to as the conclusion as the best solution is that what we realized is there's a huge opportunity in Indonesian farming whereby our yields in general are far lower than most of the world, and even compared to other Southeast Asian countries. So actually a lot of farmers are underperforming in terms of yield and quality. So what we figured then, instead of building our own farms, we should take what we've learned at our farms, continue to research, and then work with these other farmers. So that's the asset light, I guess, version of what we launched, and we called it farming as a service. So farming as a service, or FAS in a nutshell, we approach a farmer, and once they pass a basic KYC and we onboard them, we then give them a combination of inputs, so seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals, and we give them SOPs. And then every week, one of our agronomists visits them. And if it's a bigger farming corporation, then we have somebody full-time that's always there to help them. And so they get some coaching from us, and also just making sure that they're following the SOPs, using the agri inputs at the right time. And then upon harvest, we buy back everything at a predetermined price. And that's when we process, put on our brand, and then now most of it goes to export.
Yeah, that's an impressive story, and lovely that you were able to turn a dream into a reality, and even more, I think, hearing how technology got involved and it's growing so fast. What are the main problems or needs that these farmers have to be able to produce more or better produce?
Okay, so it actually all comes to almost like a socioeconomic constraint that they have based on their environment. So a lot of these farmers are in this vicious cycle where they're borrowing from middlemen who usually also buy their vegetables, but they're borrowing at 6 to 8% per month. Which is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And if all goes well in their harvest, they'll make a little bit of money. But if it doesn't go well, they end up having to pay back this middleman for the next 2 or 3 cycles. And so they can't get out of this rut and can't expand their land or become better farmers. And actually, these guys are highly skilled farmers. They're just constrained with this pressure. So I think what we've kind of figured out how to do is remove that pressure from them. Because if you actually ask them, okay, what inputs and seeds do you buy? The answer is, oh, whatever is cheapest and closest to me and is the most cost effective. It's not what's the best for their yields. And so when we offer them that, hey, okay, instead, why don't you use this selection of product? And don't worry, it is more expensive than usual, but you don't have to pay us upfront. You can pay us upon harvest. There's been almost no reluctance in that. In fact, they'll then discuss with us and recommend what they think are actually high quality inputs and methods. So I think that's the situation that a lot of them are in. And then because a lot of them are smallhold farmers, they don't have a go-to-market. So again, they're stuck going to these middlemen who then squeeze their pricing depending on what's going on, even if the market price is high. So not very economical for the farmers.
Mm. And do you see like a difference in the communities already from, of course, Beleaf has now been active for 4 or 5 years. Is there already an improvement in their living conditions, for example?
Our impact hasn't been that big yet. We are starting to see it. We only started Farming as a Service about a year and a half ago. But we do see that quite a few of our farmers have expanded their farmlands and also increased their net income due to that. So that's definitely nice to see. And what's also good to see is there's now farming communities that are approaching us. So rather than one smallhold farmer with 1 hectare or half a hectare, a larger community will say, okay, we have 500 hectares, sign a contract with us, and then we'll introduce you to the farmers in our network and scale your farming program that way, which is honestly far more effective for us. And better for them too, because then we have an impact on a large group of farmers rather than just a few.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And next to that, you also have greenhouses yourself from Beleaf Farms, am I correct?
Yeah, we do. So we have one location that's about 11 hectares, and that's where we do all the research.
Okay.
So any new product development or any methods, for example, like a type of Asian green that we grow is pak choy. Now, typically, the way that pak choy was grown in Indonesia is either in the soil or in very expensive greenhouses. Now, what we've done is actually there's 6 different methods that we're using to grow to figure out how to optimize yield, quality, and cost of goods sold. And then when we do find that solution, we can go to the farmer saying, hey, we found a better way for you to grow where you can make more money with a helping investment from us and kind of optimize their farming.
Yeah.
And then also new products. So because we're export geared, we'll see, okay, maybe Singapore needs this product. Let's try grow it ourselves, go to market in Singapore. And if it works, we'll tell Singapore that we need 3 months to scale the program. Then we go to our farmers and say, hey guys, for example, now okra is something that we can grow. I know you don't regularly grow it, but this is the method. Come to our farm, check out what we've done.
Yeah.
And then we pass them those SOPs and kind of like the product education on it.
That's amazing. Does it so this sounds like a company that needs a lot of financing to make it all happen. How did you go how did you go from being a startup? How did it start? Where did you find the necessary financing? And how did funding societies get involved?
So initially it was an equity round from a few venture capital companies in Indonesia and Singapore. But we quickly realized that that money would not be sufficient to scale our programs. That would be enough to run the company and scale internally. And that's when we started speaking to funding societies. Actually, they were one of the first that we started speaking to, and spoke to them in 2 different ways. That we actually have 2 requirements for funding. One is purely on the farmer side, where it's off balance sheet, and what we're helping you do is give farmers financing, but not in cash terms, but instead you give us the cash, we buy the inputs, we give the inputs to the farmer, and then when we buy the harvest back, we pay the P2P lender back first, and then we give the rest to the farmer. So it's almost like a closed loop way to finance farmers in a much safer way, tied in with crop insurance as well, which adds another layer of safety. So
what is crop insurance for someone who is not into our agriculture? How would you explain that?
So it actually took us a long time to convince somebody to give us crop insurance, but we finally did. And what it pretty much is if there's any natural disaster or there's a failure to harvest up to the yield you're supposed to get, but with very well documented reasoning and photos, you can then claim against the yield that you didn't get. And so then the farmer's safe, we're safe, and so is the P2P.
Yeah. Okay. And so specifically, where do you know, like what kind of investments were made in Beleaf with the financing from funding societies first and today? What do you need it most for?
Yeah, so that's the first part. The second part is actually for the offtake of the farmers, which is just a much higher cost, but a shorter cash conversion. So when the farmers harvest, It's usually in quite large quantities, and most of what we've borrowed for is to fund that piece of working capital, where we're buying. So we have the ability to buy from the farmers at a good price, and give them their money quickly and wait for our clients that are export and modern trade to pay us. So to bridge that gap.
To bridge the gap. Okay. And were you able to hire a lot of people over the years? And how does the team look like today?
Yeah, so now we have about 115 full-time employees. And then at our research farm, we probably have 20 to 30 farmers working on a daily basis. And then in our processing facility, another 60 to 70. So that's internally in Beleaf. And then we're now working with 270 hectares of farmers. Actually, when we first met Funding Societies, we were at like 2 or 3 hectares a year and a half ago. So on the 270 hectares, there's easily 1,000 to 1,500 people working that are not employed by us, but are impacted by us.
So the growth, the big growth in hectares actually happened just last year?
Actually, in the last 4 months, from 30 to 270 hectares.
Yeah, because I saw that you secured a big seed funding as well. Was that making this possible or something else?
Definitely. So we did a Series A that closed in about last August. And after that, we were able to get the teams and the research scientists that we need to actually improve yields effectively for these farmers.
Okay.
So yes, definitely being able to build the team to run the programs was very helpful.
And so I think you have a lot of different profiles in your employees of functions that they have. What is the biggest need at the moment in the field to have professionals in which area?
So definitely the agri professionals. So we actually work with 2 to 3 universities. We do breeding programs with them. We don't have the bandwidth to do seed breeding, so we actually do it with them and we fund their research. And in addition to that, the professors we work with give us their best students. This guy's graduating, he's really good, you should take him onto your team. So that was actually used to be quite difficult to find, but now we get quite a good amount of these fresh grads that are agri professionals that we then build into our program.
And I know a lot of our crowd investors also are entrepreneurs. What is specific or a big challenge or an opportunity about being an entrepreneur in Indonesia?
A lot of the things that are taken for granted in developed nations here is quite far from that. For example, like in agriculture, the supply chain, there's probably 8 to 10 different places in one vegetable supply chain that's quite broken. And you could form companies in each of those breaks just to solve that one problem. So it's actually like, 30 to 40 years worth of problems to solve just in agriculture. Where if you go to, for example, the Netherlands, which is very advanced in farming, probably has 1 out of those 10 problems. And so there's definitely a lot of opportunity, but it's also quite difficult to get done.
Yeah, and is climate change also something impacting the agricultural sector at the moment? Do you see that?
Yes, a lot more so from the predictability. So when we used to think the rainy season doesn't happen anymore. It's just a bit more random now. So then farmers with some crops, for example, sweet potato, they don't want to harvest during the rainy season because the shelf life decreases significantly. Now, they used to be able to predict when to harvest. Now they can't anymore. So it's become a bit tougher in that sense. But the biggest problem that we've seen is actually the access to water during the drought seasons or the dry seasons. So, but now that we're working with bigger land pools, we're actually able to provide deep wells for them. And then that cuts out a large risk of not being able to water your plants on time. But yes, weather change is having a decent impact. It's definitely making it more difficult, which is where the crop insurance is quite helpful.
Yeah, but you're implementing a lot of technology as well in your product and innovation. Is that a way to counter this, to help?
Yes. So what we've done so we've done this in all our hydroponic farms, our partner farms as well. We're now testing it in open fields. So we have these dosing machines, and what they do is they either read the water in hydroponic farms or the soil, either in greenhouses or open field, to see whether it needs watering and what kind of nutrition it needs at any given time. And that message gets relayed back to our dosing machine, which is then attached to our pumps that have the nutrition, and then shoots out the nutrition at the appropriate time to the vegetables to make sure that they grow faster than usual.
Yeah.
So we have better rotation of crop and more productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we have accomplished for hydroponic, and now we're trying to make a much more affordable version for open field so that we can scale it into our open field farmers. And then we also have weather stations, which is just pretty much data collection, like a robust set of data of 14 to 16 different soil and air parameters. And that one is a kind of a longer term fix where, as we collect that data and are able to hire better and better scientists, we'll be able to then kind of look at it and understand, okay, these crops did well, these did not do well, and this was the weather that happened during that time. And how do we optimize for this in the future?
Yeah. This
So I think
sounds
that's the
very,
two pieces that we're working on.
yeah, sounds very useful for so many of the sustainable development goals as well. You know, this approach, like climate change, you're tackling decent jobs, and also food security. Is the you're exporting the product, but is it mainly in Indonesia or outside of Indonesia?
So all the farming is in Indonesia, and then 70% of our product is exported to other countries. 30% we sell domestically.
Yeah, and that's a deliberate choice, or is it?
Yes.
Economic or
Both economic, and also the main thing was to get scale quickly. So for example, a supermarket here will order 10 kilos or 15 kilos, but a Singapore distributor will order 20 tons at one time. So with that scale, we're able to go back to farms and capture much larger pieces of farms, drive up our economics faster, and then be able to work with more farmers quicker, and then go back to domestic and start serving the smaller orders as well.
Okay. Well, it sounds like Beleaf is going straight up at the moment. What are the next goals? What are you looking at? And will you need more financing for that?
Definitely more financing. And that's just as we onboard more farmers, that correlation to more financing is quite direct. And we increase our market size. So, but the goal in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years is right now we're exporting to about 3 countries. We'd like to be in about 10 to 12 countries by then, and have solid markets with our brand in those countries. And on the farmer side is to just keep increasing sustainable supply. So right now, for example, we're at 270 hectares. We'd like to be at 500 by the end of the year, 1,500 the year after, and about 5,000 2.5 to 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And it's finding efficient ways to get that done.
Yeah. So taking it back to funding societies, actually, how has their way of offering you financing been different from others, or where was it fitting your needs best?
But actually, I think they were a lot more understanding about the whole requirement and what we need to get done. And as soon as they did their surveys, understood our farmers, our program, spoke to a few of our customers, understood the full value chain, they were then quite easy to work with. And each time we go back saying, hey, we're scaling our business further, these are our new clients, this is our new volume, they do provide us with assistance. And without partners like that, we would have not been able to scale our programs.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Anything that I missed that's very important to mention to a crowd of investors in the Netherlands?
I think overall that's it, but pretty much the more financing we can get from you guys, the more farmers we can help, and the more Indonesian products we can export around the world.
Absolutely, that's a goal we all want to go for. Thank you very much for this talk, Amrit.
Thank you as well.